So welcome to the Smith.ai Master Series. This is a monthly webinar series where we talk to industry experts, primarily with sales and marketing focuses, on ways that small and medium-sized businesses can really make their operations much more efficient, drive more leads, and ultimately affect the bottom line more positively and have better results. So today we're talking to Jennifer Bagley, the CEO and founder of CI Web Group. And this topic will be all about customer engagement, which is really the heart and soul of any sort of marketing activity, because it all relates back to the customer and being able to engage that customer and actually push them further along in the sales funnel to prep them for the sales process. So Jennifer, really appreciate you taking the time here to meet with us and share your expertise. So go ahead and do a little introduction of yourself and tell us a little bit about your agency.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tom. And thank you guys so much for taking time out of your busy business to be able to join us and work on your business instead of in it for a little brief moment in time. I'm Jennifer Bagley, CEO of CI Web Group. We're a digital marketing agency, started in 2006. We're now in 3 different countries, clients primarily in North America. We've helped over 10,000 small businesses, mid-sized businesses. This falls primarily in the home services market. Heating and air conditioning, plumbing, electrical, solar, and so forth, be able to really come to the table and disrupt their industry. The industry is pretty far behind when it comes to marketing, branding, technology, infrastructure, and that's really where we are specializes is helping them bring everything up to today's standards. Consumers have different expectations now than they did 10 years ago, let alone 20 years ago. And so, hopefully through transformation, we're able to help them accomplish goals that are closer in alignment with consumers of today, and then hopefully start getting them to a point where they can predict what's coming.
Absolutely. And we chose this topic specifically because of your focus on the home services industry, because we've tackled social media and social ads. We've talked a little about AI and outreach campaigns in some of the past webinars we've done this year. But home services, it really aligns well with this particular topic because you know more than most of how important that speed to lead, that quickness in response time makes in actually putting them from prospect to lead to opportunity to potential close one business. So let's start high level. How do you describe customer engagement as it stands here today in 2023?
So engagement today is just defined as the level of interaction and involvement and connection you have between your customer and all of the various channels. So there's multiple channels, right? Everybody has their own preference as far as how they want to do business, how they want to communicate. You have an entire population of millennials that have no interest in getting on a phone call. They have no interest in having someone sit in a living room. They're interested in being able to do their own research online, find their own opportunities online, be able to request their own information, find their own pricing, build their own quote and everything else. And you have entire populations that believe that if you don't have a personal phone call with someone, that it's insensitive. They don't want to deal with text. They are not going to use a chat bot, right? You have another group of people that they want immediate responses, instantaneous responses when it comes to give me somebody that I can talk to instantaneously on a chat bot, whether it's Facebook chat bot or WhatsApp chat bot or a chat bot on your website. Maybe they're multitaskers like me, who I handle 5 different things from 5 different computers on chat bots on all of them at the same time. So, I think that, right now, really engagement is what's your mastery level and what are the resources you put in place to be able to provide the kind of speed to lead, the kind of service, the kind of response times, the kind of customer journey that each individual person demands. And a lot of times as a business owner, we tend to think about only ourselves. So we're like, well, I would only want to talk on the phone, or I would only want to do business online, or I would never get on Facebook and use instant messenger, or whatever the different case scenario is. People I can ask literally an audience of 100, and I do all the time. Which one do you prefer? Do you prefer a phone call or do you prefer a text? The phone call people are so adamant that it's impersonal not to have a phone call, that they want to be able to call somebody, they want to be able to get answers. And in this industry, it's even more challenging because the majority of this industry is serving homeowners who don't have time to take care of this. This is a honey to-do list. They can't get it done Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Right? When do you get to your activities that are related to your home? It's probably not Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, yet they go online, they see all these businesses that are options. It clearly says they open at 8 a.m., they close at 5, sometimes 4, sometimes 4:30, and it's 6 p.m. and they all say closed. So you have another challenge that you're open, a home service business that's open Monday through Friday from 9 to 5, thinks they close, and they clearly market to the consumer as they close at 5 p.m. In reality, that's what a digital store is for. That's what Smith.ai is for. That's what having after hours conversations and services, online booking system, chat systems, and all of these other avenues, so that you can have a digital store and a resource team that's open 24/7 to be able to book an appointment. It doesn't mean they need you to come out. It's not an emergency. It just means they need to get it off their checklist, so it's not that ping pong ball that keeps you up at night all night.
Yeah. So you've owned CI Web Group for quite some time. So what has been the biggest change that you've seen in kind of the early digital days to now when it comes to customer engagement? Is it the fact that customers really demand 24/7 now? Is it the increase in the comfort level with people asking legitimate business inquiries and questions through social media or through text? What are some of those big game changers that have taken place over the course of a decade?
So yes, yes, and yes, and more, right? The world of customer engagement, it's evolved significantly over the last few years. So they've transitioned from typical forms of communication and digital channels. They've expanded the number of digital channels they expect you to be available on. They are now, many are expecting more personalized and real-time customer interactions with businesses, leading to a greater focus on building relationships, providing excellent customer service. And you have some that don't want any interaction with anybody. They want to be able to go to a website. They want to be able to put in a zip code, their information. They want to put in what their details are of what their requests are. And they want that system to spit out options and spit out financing with it and spit out the ability to be able to check out or subscribe. So you've got to be able to handle both. And I think this industry is significantly far behind. I mean, I would say out of 1,000 websites that I look at, about 900 of them give 2 options: call or fill out this clunky web form. And that's it. And that's just not going to cut it. I think that the day that your external consumer base is evolving faster than your internal business, you're dying. Death is inevitable. I mean, it's going to happen, because if you've got competitors that are surrounding you that have no operating hours, that allow consumers to be able to communicate with them through various channels and chats, that allow for customer interactions regardless of day or time, or whether it's a holiday or Sunday in the middle of the day, that allow for consumers to go through an e-commerce-like experience, something they're familiar with when they order from Amazon. It's instant. When they order from Uber, it's instant. They can get their groceries instantly. They can do everything instantly. So it's this combination of this high touch and high tech. Somewhere in the middle, you've got to be able to fundamentally do both and execute extremely well.
We'll start getting to actually what goes into a plan in a minute, since that's kind of the main topic here. But I want to press into your comment about the form fill, because I spent also over a decade in the agency world, and this was something that we struggled a lot with clients that we would onboard and come to us. They were so in love with the form fill because it was better for them as a business, because they got all the information they needed in one fell swoop. They could qualify them much more quickly. It entered into their system much more cleanly. But it wasn't a better experience for the user, for the buyer, for the customer. So they put themselves at the forefront, and they led the ease of use for them to be the decision maker, rather than focusing on what the customer needed and what was the better experience for them to make it easy for them. And that caused a lot of friction. And I had many discussions over the years about ways that we can improve this customer engagement strategy simply by backing away from the form fill. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, first I'm gonna stress this. If you own a company and you are not hyperly obsessed with your customers, I mean, hyperly obsessed with your customers and their needs, then we have a gap right out of the gate.
Right.
So let me backtrack a little bit, leaving that in place. If I'm highly obsessed with my customers, then I understand first how to get in front of them. And that's the step before the form. It's the step before the call. It's the step before the social media interaction, right? If I am highly obsessed with my customers, I understand that the majority of my consumers, when they need something, go to Google, do a search. They probably skip the ads. The more educated do, they know better. The younger they are, the more they skip the ads. They may or may not click on the maps. They likely will not click on it, especially if it's 4:01 or 5:01 p.m. and you clearly say closed in big, giant, bold, all caps lettering, right?
Yeah.
And they will likely find a website on page 1 of Google and they will never go to page 2. So first, make sure you're visible for the services you want to sell in the cities you want to be able to sell it. And that can be validated through data. There is data that will clearly show you what your market analysis is. How many households do I have in this particular market? That's the total number of potential customers, consumers. What my market share is how many clients do I have? How many households are in my database that are active customers? How many households are available on that market? That's first. Understand where your market share is. Next is understand what consumer demand is. What are they looking for? So if you're heating and air conditioning company and they're searching for AC service, AC repair, AC installation, AC maintenance, same thing with furnaces and heat pumps and so forth, then do you have pages that are for those particular search terms that have high demand? So if you're trying to be creative, you might be in a market where you want to sell heat pumps and no one's looking for heat pumps. So you can't market heat pumps. So first is use the data to be able to identify what are the target services that have the highest volume of demand. What are the target markets that you want to be able to do business in? That's first. Second is what is the associated offer that falls with that particular service in that particular market? What are you going to offer them? What's a compelling offer you're going to put for that service, right? Third is what are all the engagement strategies you have to be able to ensure that they have an amazing customer experience? So the form fill. Back to your original question, because in this industry, a lot of what we will hear from the majority of companies out there is the only requests they get via their forms are spam. So a couple things. One, from a technical standpoint, don't put a form on your website that's insecure, because the only people that can find you are bots that are trying to send you giant spam messages. Two, that's one. Two is having the consumer given the ability to text in their request, to be able to chat with somebody live, to be able to pick up the phone and have a phone call regardless of hours, day or time. Your conversion rates, we're looking at data that is tenfold the response times and the conversion times and the closing ratios when you give the consumer 3 or more options around the clock. So if you look at my lead opportunity, first, am I visible to those people who are searching and want to buy the services I sell in the markets I'm willing to serve? That's first. Second is, once they get there, do you have a compelling offer? Second. Third is, if you have a pie chart and you take all of the prospective consumers, you invested money into permanent assets or advertising to be able to drive the consumer to the website. So you have all of these visitors that are coming to your website, and this pie chart, this group of them say, I only want to communicate if you make it easy. It's got to be on text. I live on text, live and die by text. This group says, I only want to be able to communicate if I'm able to chat with someone instantaneously, regardless of hours. These people want a personal call. These people are willing to schedule online. These people want to go through the buying experience in an e-commerce version. Every single one of those options, take that list of 1,000 people that's visiting your website on a monthly basis, start deleting each of these columns that you don't have in that pie chart and just narrow it down, because your bounce rate increases, the total number of prospective opportunities that you get from each one of those different conversion techniques starts dwindling as you don't make those things available. I've got clients that are dying on the vine and refuse to implement anything that's an after hours solution. And we can tell in their total traffic, we're driving 6,000 people to your website. And out of those 6,000 people to your website, 80% of them are coming to them after 5:01. And that's when you refuse to be available. No online chatbot, no direct call system. They don't have a solution for being able to answer calls. And it's not that difficult. You don't, that's what this is what we work with Smith.ai for, is to be able to put a team in place that can handle these things. You don't have to hire resources that handle these things around the clock. It's outsourced. Put a system in place, but don't say no to it. Don't cut out that giant piece of the pie because you're taking the dollar you invested to drive the lead to your website and just burning it up.
Right. And that is, I think, one of the biggest changes in the landscape is the comfort level and the expectation of businesses operating and responding during those off hours. We're not sitting in front, even work from home has had a big dramatic effect on that, let alone just the digital transformation that's been taking place much longer than the work from home revolution. But we're making big, important buying decisions at night and on weekends when a lot of those SMBs just aren't putting somebody there sitting in front of the computer wanting to respond. And there's alternative solutions, as you mentioned, and that's why Smith.ai exists and why we're having webinars like this. Let's get into the actual crafting of that plan. It sounded like if a new client approaches you, let's say it's an HVAC company, and they're wanting to potentially do business with you, what goes into diagnosing and auditing their current customer engagement makeup and channels and laying that groundwork for building that initial strategy?
So, I mean, we have to start from the beginning. Even a step before that is, do they have any visitors? I've done 6 strategy sessions in the last 24 hours.
Nice. It's top of mind then right now. It's fresh.
Right now, I'm just thinking about those particular 6, and I'm
yeah, use examples. Yeah,
listening. Yeah. Not one of them had more than 112 visitors on a monthly basis. So if you have 112 visitors on a monthly basis and a 50% bounce rate and 1% conversion rate, because you only offer one option or 2 options, a form and a call, it's nothing.
You have problems. you have problems that need to be addressed.
I don't. It's so challenging. And, a lot of entrepreneurs, they're subject matter expert. They were a technician, or they were a comfort advisor, or they worked for another company and they split off, or they had a partnership and they split off. But when it comes to evaluating these elements, what do I invest in marketing to drive consumer demand and traffic? What do I invest in the technology and or resources in order to be able to provide consumers with preferences? What are their demographics, buying behaviors, feedbacks? How do I incorporate an omni-channel response platform to be able to manage all of these different things? This isn't a cost evaluation. And I think a lot of times they sit down and they're looking at how much does it cost? How much does it cost? How much does it cost? Forget that. How much did you what's the loss? What does it cost you to not do the things that you need to do as an entrepreneur to be able to grow a business? You cannot grow a business without proper branding, proper digital positioning, proper conversion strategy, a proper promotional and ad strategy. I mean, all of these things, they all have to be in place. It's what happens if the pizza company says we're not going to deliver? You have to come into our office.
No pizza.
No pizza, right? What happens if the pizza companies say we're not going to offer you the ability to deliver? What are the cab drivers doing right now, right? What are the hotels? How are the hotels thinking right now with Airbnbs and VRBOs? Every industry has to adapt, and they have to adapt to the consumer's demands. And right now, consumers are used to instantaneous.
Right. So it's a twofold strategy, because it's the chicken and the egg. Both are needed, because you need to make sure that once traffic arrives on the site, they have the ability to convert, get the information they need, contact the business, get responses from the business. But on the other hand, you need to get people there, or else you're making these changes and putting in all this work and putting all these resources into a desert island that there's not enough people to actually convert in the first place. So you talked a little bit about how we're going to do that. You obviously have paid solutions, you have SEO, you have content, you have ways that you're driving traffic to the site. So now that people are on the site and you actually have an audience that you've built, let's assume that it's targeted. If you have the right measures in place to make sure that it's qualified visitors that are actually coming to the site, Now let's talk about what that plan looks like to establish those conversion points, make sure that there's enough of them, the right ones, and address what goes into the responses to each of those channels.
So the very first thing we're going to do once, let's say all those things are in place. Next, it's evaluating what's our current conversion strategy. So, I mean, our team, we secret shop our clients. We call, and if we call and the
As you
first
should, yeah, absolutely.
AC, right?
Yeah.
Or voicemails or no answers or call center reps that are less than personable, I'll say, right? We'll identify each one of those. So first we secret shop all of them. If they have multiple variations of conversion tools within their website, we test them all. The last 10, I would say, that I've tested that had online chats, I was on the website in front of the customer, no answer. No response. I'm waiting. It's just a spinning circle. No answer, no answer, no answer, no answer. And the business owner's answer to that was, oh, we have to keep this open all the time in order to temp. I'm like, no, you need to get it off your plate because this is not what you're good at. That's first.
HVAC is known for this. I experienced it firsthand about a year ago. I was buying a new heating system, 3 companies, local. I live in upstate New York, contacted each one through a chatbot. They each promised me a response. 2 of them straight up ignore me. I'm still to this day, 12 months later, still waiting for a response.
Where's my quote?
And one actually, called me back about, I don't know, 2 hours later. It wasn't smooth for all 3 of them. And the one that I did business with was lucky enough for me to choose them. But it really is unfortunate. It's really common, especially in the home services, because they're doing the work and they have a hard time actually giving the time, attention, and love to their online channels that require that, or else you're not going to have customers the next day if you don't manage both of those efforts.
Yeah, it actually made me think about just, again, this last dozen people that I've talked to in, I want to say it was 3 or 4 of the scenarios. When we dove in and looked at their social media messaging, I did the same thing, went to their social media accounts, dropped in a little Facebook message. And at the end of the day, they didn't even own their platform anymore. It was an office manager that set up their Facebook. It's still out there. They don't have admin rights. And so all those inquiries are going to nowhere, never land.
And that was social media.
Yes.
Yeah, because I've seen that too with Google My Business and the chat function built into Google My Business, which is a great resource for local businesses, especially if they're running local services ads. So let's list off some of those common channels that those on the line should be paying attention to when they're building this plan.
So obviously, number 1, on your website, you do have to have some kind of a form that has to have immediate quick responses. You've got to be quick on those things. Number 2, you've got to have a chat bot that's 24/7. Number 3, you got to give people the ability to call or text, and it has to be a click to call. It can't be a dead phone number up there that no one can click on a phone. They will click back. That will be the next click, and they will go to the next website that lets them tap that number and make a quick FaceTime. Yep. And number 3, you got to nail down Google, or whatever number I'm on, Google Business. Like, do not neglect A, owning your Google business, B, optimizing your Google business, and C, publishing content to it on a regular basis. And you need to monitor that thing like a hawk. And when I say I mean, you need to invest in the solutions that are necessary to manage all of these channels. So next is going to be Facebook. That's a simple one. If you are growing, then you've got to be doing the same thing on LinkedIn, right? You should have a professional LinkedIn account. You should have all your jobs posted on LinkedIn. You should make sure that you have the ability to manage your LinkedIn communications. So obviously you can jump into other social media platforms. Should you be using TikTok or Instagram or YouTube? Do you have videos loaded on YouTube? There's lots of other channels, but just master the basics. Website, Google My Business, Facebook, start with those 3 and get a system in place. Get it off your plate. Get experts. When your CSRs have a bad day, or when your CSRs are also required to do a billing, and when your CSRs are also required to get the mail and file contracts, and when your CSRs are doing all these other things, they're not focused on the customer. That call, when they have a bad day, the customer feels it. When they are multitasking, the customer feels it. If they are not in coaching and training program on a regular basis, the customer feels it. So do you want to implement the necessary things to be able to properly get the right people into a CSR position and provide ongoing training and get them in a coaching program and record all of their calls and as a business owner, listen to those calls? Or do you want to outsource it to someone that does that for a business? That's is their business. Those are conversations they have to have.
And it seems like it's one of the first things that ends up falling off the team's plate when there's other things that appear in terms of managing the business, when really it should be the one single thing that isn't neglected, because it's literally the first touch point you have with a potential client or customer. It's the most important thing that your business should be doing to make sure that that you're maintaining a healthy sales pipeline. But because it's repetitive, because it's tedious, because it's hard to look at it as something that's tangible right in front of you. It's digital. It can be pushed off when you have, a customer or something, some other need that's sitting on your desk. It often gets pushed off, and it shouldn't. It can't. It's too important not to. So we talked about auditing and figuring out what the current landscape looks like. We talked about driving traffic and make sure there's actually people to actually convert. Establishing your channels, making sure you're selecting the right ones and that they're set up and optimized properly. Now let's talk about the next step, which is making sure that you're documenting, what happens after somebody calls, texts, fills out a form. What goes into actually documenting what is going on once the conversion takes place?
So, I would first out of the gate say no business should be operating without recording those calls. I'm not on this meeting or any other meeting without recording my own, and I own the company, but I record every single call. It's transparent internally. Our team evaluates my calls and each other's calls for process improvement. So one, make sure you're recording every single conversation. Two, make sure you have a centralized location for all of your leads and opportunities to go into. Every single one of them. So Excel is not the option. It needs to be a central database. So if you're using an ERP platform, an enterprise resource planning system, if you're using a CRM application, if you're using a field management system with dispatching options, whatever the technology is, you've got to make sure you have a process to make sure all leads and opportunities go in there, not just customers. Not just customers, because remarketing to those consumers who didn't buy from you is important. So we want to make sure every single thing goes into a central location. All communications are documented, what the client's preferences are, and then getting more personalized, right? It's not just about having quick responses and seamless interactions across all touch points, but in addition to that, it's being able to take real specific notes on, is Mary having a bad day? Does she have kids in the house? Does she have pets? Does she have allergies? Does she have a baby in the house? Is she concerned with, all of these other things? But taking meticulous notes on truly what the issue is with that client is wildly important. Right now, I think there's a bigger challenge in the industry when it comes to the technology applications, especially when it comes to a multi-branch operation or private equity group with multiple branches underneath that. The technology, without naming technology, that is having issues, but there are not a lot of options when it comes to field management system and booking systems in the, for example, HVAC and home services space. It's a limited list. And within that limited list, there are some pretty big technical challenges when it comes to attempting to have a centralized call center and book across multiple branches or nationwide or across multiple locations. I think the industry needs a overhaul when it comes to the technology, but whatever you have in place right now, or if you don't have something in place, making sure that every single communication, regardless of the multimedia source or omni channels that it comes through, if it's social or email or live chat or a phone call or a web form, they all have to end up in a central location and dashboard.
And that's why CRM comes up so often in these conversations, because it's so imperative to the success of a customer engagement strategy and program. Because if you're not using a proper CRM, or you're not using CRM to the fullest extent, the extent that you should be, the whole strategy just crumbles, because that's where you actually can see the results of your labor and where you're going to actually be able to carry out those conversations and handle the actual sales part of this whole process, right? It starts out as marketing, but it, turns into actual sales activity. So
It's also where you're going to track your ROI.
exactly. I was just going to get into reporting now. Right. So tell us how you're actually reporting on the success of these campaigns, starting from the very top of the funnel with the content and social and SEO and paid efforts that you're doing, all the way through to that prospect becoming a customer, signing on and retaining them in future conversations. What's that whole process look like from a reporting standpoint?
So the process depends on the functionality of the technology we have available to us. I'll start with that as the caveat. Let's pretend like we have a decent operating platform. And let's pretend like the company we're working with has ownership of all of their actual assets. That's their Google platform assets. They own they own their Google business listing, their Google Analytics, Google Search Console, Google Tag Manager. They own all of their social media channels. They own their actual website. All of those things, we're going to pretend like that's real, which I wish it was, but
it's never as simple as you make it out to be when we're having a discussion like this.
First of all, don't let other people's own your stuff, right?
Yeah.
No marketing agencies, don't let them buy your domain for you. Don't let them set up your Google business listing for you. Do it yourself. Let them walk you through how to do it. Don't let your office manager or someone you're dating set up your Facebook page for your company for you. I'm just saying all these things, don't do it. You're
bringing back bad memories for me.
You jump into a relationship, you want to hit the ground running. You're like, got to go backwards. We got to fix unravel years of bad decisions with people and marketing agencies and long-term contracts. And the first 3 months is typically just trying to unravel all of this and get the business owner to own all their assets, have a 1Password document, know all their logins and passwords, centralize everything, then associate administrative access with your vendors. You give your vendor access to be able to work in it. You don't make them own it.
Yeah, right.
Everyone, okay. That's a sore spot. So
it's good to bring up though, because it probably happened with every single client I ever took on over a 10-year period. So it's a very common problem, and it's relevant to this discussion because it really puts a damper on building that strategy, getting it set up and being executed immediately. You're really, really stalled when you can't get access to those channels, especially Facebook, Google My Business, or CRM, depending on who has the keys and who can give you administrative rights to own those channels and share those channels.
Yeah, and when you get to the Google platforms, right, your analytics and your tag manager and your paid search account and all of those, when the company sets it up and they refer to it as their proprietary information instead of yours, you're starting over every single time. Right. So you can't measure ROI and you can't measure year over year results if you don't own your data. Right. So that's first, you got to own your data. So the number of new accounts we have to set up when they've got 10 years of history with 5 different marketing agencies that all kept ownership of that can't ever happen again. If you watch this webinar, you're never going to enter into a long-term.
That's the takeaway. That's the one takeaway. Own your stuff.
So all things equal, everything is set up good. So number one is we need to create what are all the campaigns you're going to launch. So a single campaign may be your paid search, single campaign or a sub campaign under paid search. Do you have a PMax account? Do you have a smart campaign? Do you have a manual campaign? So there's sub campaigns underneath that. We're looking at which campaign performs better. Is it PMax? Is it smart campaign? Is it paid search, right? Next is you're going to look at what is my SEO campaign? What are the total number of markets and what are the total number of services under each market? That's part of my SEO campaign. Do I have a page specific to that service in that market with a proper call to action and a proper conversion strategy for each one, as well as a promotional offer or something that consumers are going to buy into? Next is what are all the social media channels that I have investments in, right? What is my Google business listing? Your Google business, it technically follows under the local listings or local marketing umbrella. It doesn't fall under SEO and should not be measured as such. People that find you on maps in the city, you have a physical verified address via postcard or a video call. That's a certain set of conversions. That is not search engine optimization, which is a consumer finding you from an organic search because they need AC repair in Denver, Colorado, for example. Those are separate. Now you get into any other media or advertising buy. So if we get into traditional media and advertising, let's say like the slot machines or blackjack or Texas Hold'em, whatever your game is, and you decide you want to throw your money on the table and you want to roll those dice and you want to see if you can leave with more than you spent. So we're going to talk about OTT, billboards, TV, radio, mailers, flyers, door hangers, signs, all of these demand type, even social media ads, right? These are demand type advertising techniques. Every one of them has to have their own call tracking line. Every one of them has to have their own either a QR code or personalized URL or a landing page that you're tracking conversions on with a separate conversion technique and or form. Every one of them needs assigned their own Google Tag Manager so that we can track exactly every dollar that gets invested out. How many leads did it bring in? What's the conversion ratio? What's the cost per conversion? How many of those are converting into new business? What's the average ticket? How low did you have to go in price? Did they use financing? Did you have to discount? What were all of the things associated with that? And real quickly, you're going to find that when you have a investment, for example, into search engine optimization, you're investing in permanent assets that have a compounding interest impact on the business. They're producing a more educated consumer who has a little bit more demands as far as speed and customer service, and they expect a higher quality of experience. But you can get unlimited leads and opportunities once you're living in a page 1 top 10 position. And you typically have a much more loyal, if loyal is a thing, consumer that is a more educated process, higher demands, but higher ticket, better qualifying on credit. There's lots of different things you want to be able to track all the way down to which customer or which advertising vehicle produces what kind of leads, and that produces what type of deals, that produces what type of net profit. What's your gross margin on leads that come from SEO or Google My Business compared to what's your net profit from paid search or social media ads? There's a pretty significant difference in between them. So once you have your ROI calculations based on each one of these KPIs in place, now you have the ability to say, all right, I want to increase my investment in this area, and I want to slowly decrease my investment in this area and use this as filler space. So my paid search becomes something I can turn on, turn up, turn off, turn on, to be able to increase demand over a certain period of time. But my main core focus is I want to own page 1 of Google for over 1,000 different service terms in 60 different towns and or cities that are surrounding my physical locations, because these produce a higher gross margin customer. They're easier to deal with. And these ones, I just need to be able to ramp up. If you've got labor hours sitting on the table, and are sitting in the office or the break room and they're not out working, turn it up, right? But don't let people sit. So you're looking at, how do I generate the most amount of revenue per man hour, per woman hour, per person hour, right, within our company? And if you don't have these KPIs, if you don't have these measurements, if you're not identifying what your churn rate is, your net promoter score, what your lifetime value is for a customer, what your average transactional value is, what your average ticket is, all of these different pieces give you the data and information to be able to pivot and make better business decisions to produce better results over time.
Okay, let's drill down. At the very end of that, you said the average lifetime value of a customer, right? Which is absolutely critical to be able to make a lot of other decisions of everything that we've talked about up until this point, right? So let's assume that you're using Google Analytics 4 for all of your traffic-based reporting, your CRM for all of your opportunity-based reporting and those across your sales activity, and maybe even some other tools for other types of tracking, Hotjar for heat mapping, or WooConverts for conversion mapping. If you have that customer lifetime value and you know what an opportunity is worth to you, you know what a lead is worth to you, what are some of the decisions you can make with having to make sure that there's 24/7 coverage across all of these conversion points?
The math is so easy, it's brain numbing. If it costs me $50 a month, for example, to have a single page titled AC repair in blank, live on page 1 of Google, get up to it, your initial investment, and live there. And each transaction is an average of $650. And 80% of the visitors to that page happen after 4 p.m. How many leads do you need in order to be able to make sure you never leave a consumer stranded who visited that site, regardless of what day or time it is? I mean, you need one transaction to cover a half a year investment in the marketing side. It is quite simple, and that's for service and repair. I mean, you start looking at average sales tickets for installation and replacement, and should I or should I not make sure that A, I'm visible in front of consumers when and where they're searching, and B, that I never leave a consumer stranded when they get there, ever, under any circumstances. If your average ticket is between $10,000, or even I'll just go out to the middle of Iowa and it's $7,000, $7,500,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Compared to $25,000 to $30,000 in other markets. I mean, they need to do the math. Like,
Yeah, and that math is so much easier and more compelling when it's a higher ticket item. I've dealt with a lot of B2B brands that sold industrial equipment where it was $20,000, $30,000, and it's like, you're missing how many calls? You're not responding to your forms. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. The ROI is nearly instant as soon as you start picking up on how many of those missed opportunities there are in just the first week or month, because all you need is a normal standard industry standard conversion rate, and that's turning a profit in 1 month's time. So I'm glad that you mentioned the call
I was
tracking.
going to add one more thing to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So for everyone who's listening, think about it this way. 1, am I visible? 2, what does it cost me to leave a customer stranded versus what can I make? Let's say it's service calls and your average ticket's only $600, $400, $350, whatever it is. Now, if you can, 1, make sure no one gets stranded, and 2, every time you get a service or repair call, don't go out, turn a wrench and fix a problem. Go out and do a comprehensive evaluation each and every time. Get that opportunity in the door. Go out and do a comprehensive evaluation each and every time, and provide the consumer with the most cost-effective solution to upgrade to a higher efficiency system or repair. And use technology to give you the ability to determine what makes sense. Do I repair or replace? What's the most cost-effective option? If you can start measuring your ability to convert a repair call into a replacement call, now we're doubling down. Now it becomes even more important. So I don't want to say that all of the liability falls on who is answering the phones. Make sure that whoever's answering the consumer request, that's first. Make sure that you never skip that piece. It's a complete oxymoron to invest in marketing and then not answer leads.
Yeah, right.
In addition to that, you also need to invest in your team and make sure that they have the technology, the knowledge, the know-how, the process, and the KPIs internally to make sure that they are also measuring KPIs internally on what % of my total repair calls am I converting into installations, right? And that what % of my installations am I converting into maintenance agreements? How am I increasing my monthly recurring revenue through maintenance agreements with monthly subscriptions, through online filter delivery with monthly subscriptions? You have all these other layers that add on. It's not a single transaction when you're looking at lifetime value. We're also looking at increasing your monthly recurring revenue on top of that. So it becomes compounding when you think of how much could it actually cost. If I nailed down all those things and I was really good at those things, what is the actual cost of missing a lead? Just because you answer slow or not at all, or don't have access to your Google account.
And that's still the number 1 takeaway for this webinar. So only about 15 minutes left. So if you have questions, jump into the chat or the Q&A. We'll monitor them. I'll monitor them here on this screen while we round out this conversation. So you mentioned call tracking, which I'm glad that you did. Shout out to CallRail. They're one of our partners and a really great tool. And what's wonderful about that is set it up, track it for a few days or a few weeks, and you can see the loss that you've been experiencing over the course of however long you've been managing a website, right? And it's truly eye-opening at that point, because that's when you can actually start putting that math in place and make decisions around the tools or the resources like Smith.ai or agencies like yourself. You can start figuring out how much you're able to contribute to those external resources in order to write this whole thing, and to make sure that you're ROI positive. Because up until that point, if you're not tracking it, you don't know. And that ignorance, it might seem like bliss, but it's not, because it's detrimental to your business, because you're spending, whether it's direct dollars in paid or whether it's dollars in terms of labor. Somebody's spending money to get people to this site and get people into the door, and it's just backfiring and you don't know it. That's the biggest problem. You don't know it until you start tracking it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I'm just going to throw out this to heighten awareness. Everybody attends trainings like this all the time. I work with some of the best people in the entire industry, and they give $1 million ideas. They give multi-million-dollar ideas. But what happens after you get off the call is what matters. What are you going to do with it? What are you going to execute? Are you going to do an inventory list of all of your technical assets to see what you have, what you don't have, what you have ownership of? Do you have it organized? Are you going to do a digital evaluation to see, are you positioned in front of consumers when and where they search? And do you have data driving those decisions, or are you guessing? Are you measuring where you're currently ranking and positioned? Do you have those systems in place to be able to monitor what's currently going on in your organization? Are you making excuses for people within your organization? Oh, Shelly had a bad day today. Well, they don't really, but no excuses. Like, as an entrepreneur, all these things, are you going to make the decision to make sure that you have somebody available to answer all leads and opportunities from every single omni-channel resource, all of your calls, all of your forms, everything online? Are you going to make sure that you have a resource in place within 30 days? What are the goals you're setting in for every single one of these pieces? Are you going to start measuring? Are you going to increase your total leads and opportunities? Are you going to increase your ticket value? You're going to start charging higher prices? That's the beauty about all of this. I assume that everybody that is on this call started their business because they wanted one of three things. They wanted more time, more money, and more freedom. But if we don't make the decisions as business owners to ensure that we get there, we start working in the business, not on the business, then we're not making the decisions that are going to help us increase the total lead volume, convert more of that business. The more leads you have, the less scarcity mindset you have. So you're not undercutting, you're not discounting, you're not trying to be the cheapest guy out there or gal out there. You are doing the opposite. The better your process, workflow, and data, the higher you can charge. Who says that you have to be the lowest price, right? Price is only determined by what the consumer is willing to pay for it. So if you want to have a Mercedes price, give them a Mercedes experience. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, so this was action packed. This was 50 minutes. We've talked about quite a bit. So let's do a little recap. If you're building a customer engagement strategy, we first need to really audit the entire landscape. You can't just immediately dive into your conversion points and your engagement, because you need to figure out how you're actually driving people to the site and to your resources in the first place. So your whole marketing strategy needs to be considered before you drill down and you think about just the conversion points and how you're going to react and respond to those customers. So once you build out your marketing strategy, now you can focus and double down on your conversion points. And you need to select the right channels, and you're going to do that through reporting and monitoring what your customers are currently demanding, and where they're spending the most time, and which channels are producing the best qualified opportunities, currently within your funnel. And once you've set up those channels, get access, don't let other agencies they retain access. Once you have access and you've optimized each of those experiences, you really need to map out who's responding, how you're responding, what you're saying, and how you're actually getting that data, that contact information into your CRM, so that way you can continue those sales conversations and record that properly. And who's responding is really, really important. Is that going to be internal? Is it going to be outsourced to a virtual receptionist? Or is it going to be outsourced to a company like ourselves, where we can do that 24/7. And that's really important because that's really one of the biggest glaring issues is companies, small and medium-sized companies in particular, neglecting those customers that are reaching out and saying, I want to do business with you. Here's my money, take it. And if you're leaving that on the table, that's really, really detrimental. And you don't know that unless you're reporting really everything across this full funnel. So that's kind of my 60-second summary of everything that we've talked about here. Jennifer, give me the one final point here. And if you want, you can use this opportunity to say, make sure you own your channels.
Make sure you own your. I'm sorry. Careful. I would say this. I wish that we were on this call talking about innovation and the future and where things are headed, because the future that you see, the difference in time when you see these iterations of how consumers are evolving. As a consumer, we're evolving extremely rapidly. We're not. Everything we've covered on this call is like marketing and sales and lead processing 101.
101. Yeah, it's 101.
This isn't, I mean, it's frustrating. It's not exciting, but it is exciting. But it's also very frustrating because this whole presentation, as frustrating it might feel if you don't have these things nailed down, these are the fundamentals of running a business. And if you're an entrepreneur, you don't have fundamentals down, we have a giant issue, Houston.
Yeah, it might be fun to talk about AI and all these revolutionary things coming out, but if you're not responding to a simple form fill or a simple Google My Business chat, then
I can't
there's no sense in talking about the futuristic topics. Exactly right.
I would love to have a webinar where we're talking about, because I mean, you know, even after this, when we get done with this, we should technically have another webinar and talk about outbounding and using that database. What are you doing with that existing database? Because that's another 101 that is severely, you know, a giant gap. So we've got, this isn't the only 101. We need to nail this part down. The fundamentals are running.
First semester and second semester.
Yes. Same second semester is you have a database of leads and opportunities. How are you leveraging that database? What does outbounding look like? And then maybe we can get close to something innovative where we can get in front of how consumers are evolving. You've been awesome.
Absolutely.
So much.
Appreciate your time, Jennifer. And everyone on the line, if you have information or if you have a need for information about Smith.ai, join us at Smith.ai. And Jennifer's contact information will be in the email that I send out as soon as I hang up on the line here. So thank you everyone for joining, and stay tuned for future webinars on related topics just like this. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.